John? Yes. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Mary, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Beth Bailey,
Here.
Marge Jorgensen,
Here.
John Kraus,
Here.
Mary Coon,
Here.
Maria Mason,
Here.
Lisa Panzer,
Here.
Chad Creevy, Gary Spielman,
Here.
Joanne Tedeschi.
Here.
Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4 minutes. Everyone should have had a opportunity to review the regular meeting minutes on March 7th and the special meeting minutes on March 21st.
I move for approval of the March 7th regular meeting minutes and the March 21st closed session minutes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the March 7th meeting and the special meeting on March 21st. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Good evening, everyone that's here. Thank you for coming, and everyone that's listening online tonight. We'll move on to public comment. There was no one signed up for public comment, so we'll move on to announcements.
The board may recess into closed session per Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss specific employees and employee groups and to discuss negotiation strategy, and Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The board will reconvene into open session for the possible transaction of business and adjournment.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda. Everyone should have a copy of that. If there's not any questions or anything, I would entertain a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we'll move on to reports to be presented by administration. First up is School of the Month presentation, Jefferson Elementary. Hi, Mary.
Good evening, how is everybody?
Good.
So I wanted to start our presentation out tonight with just reviewing a little bit of the demographics at Jefferson. We have 371 students at Jefferson this year, and that's EC 4K through 5th grade. Special education services, 14% of our students receive special education services. We have 32% of our students that are Hispanic, and 18% of those students are considered ELL. We're going to talk a little bit later about a shift that we're seeing in the countries of origin with our ELL students. And we'll focus some of the presentation tonight on some of the things that we've done for those families that need translation. Done a lot of reflecting this year about how to better serve those families. Some celebrations, because I think we've put some things together that we can be proud of that will continue, and then always room for growth and some ideas moving forward to better serve those families. So school success plan, our first goal, ELA, just by the spring of 2022, having 65% of the students at that grade, on grade level, green on the iReady ELA. And the box there shows where we were in the fall and then in the winter. So fall green was at 23%, winter 44%, and then striving for that 65% by the end of the year. and progress toward typical annual growth was 80%. So 80% of those students are on track to meet their goal in ELA on the iReady test by the end of the year. And then we did have Hispanic students as our subgroup, so I pulled that data as well. So in the fall, the Hispanic students, we had 17% at grade level, and winter, 36%. And then that progress toward typical annual growth is less than the student body, so 68%. And then school success plan math, same goal, trying to get to that 65% by the end of the year. 65% of the students at grade level. So there's the breakdown on the left of all the students K through 5. So 14% were at grade level in the fall on the iReady diagnostic and math, and then in the winter 40%. And then 63% are progress toward typical annual growth. And then Hispanic students on the right there, we had only 9% at grade level in the fall and at 28% in the winter. And then the progress toward typical annual growth was 67%. So a bit better than the school as a whole. So I wanted to talk specifically about the action steps that I have highlighted there. The action steps above those highlighted points are pretty similar to what a lot of the other buildings are doing at the elementary level, but I wanted to zero in on a couple of things that were more specific to Jefferson this year. One being a new parent-teacher conference format that we tried in the fall with our families, and then also a separate session in fall and in February for families needing translation for their parent-teacher conferences. So why did we decide to do a new format for our parent-teacher conferences this year in the fall? It started with looking at data and having some discussions with the Guiding Coalition and our SEL team this summer about how best to get that parental support and have parents see where their students are academically and understand what that data means, and then where they need to be and what we're doing at school to help them and what they could help with at home. And we just thought, you know, the 15 minutes that we have at parent-teacher conferences, it just isn't enough time, and we really wanted to try something different, especially coming off the last couple of years with COVID and all of the lost learning. So what we did was we had families, if they had more than one child, they went into their youngest child's teacher's classroom. All of the classrooms, all of the grades used the same template to share the information, which I'm going to show you in just a few minutes. And as the families entered, they had a folder, and in the folder were the iReady reports for all of the kids in their family. And so the teachers then had a presentation prepared and explained some things which I'll go through to those families. And then the families also had an option to do an individual conference if they wanted to. They did not have to attend this group conference, but we did have most of them choose to do that and choose to give it a try. And we gave them a survey at the end, which I can talk a little bit about too. And then in the spring, February, we went back to those individual conferences and did some follow-ups on the data from fall. Do you mind, Mary, just clicking on that link? Thank you. I did send you guys the presentation, but I'm just going to go through a little bit of it up to the reading part of it, because they did the same thing for math. So we worked together on a template for the parents for fall conferences and what that should look like. So all of them are covering the exact same material. So this is a sample from 3rd grade. So I'm going to just scroll down to that. Yeah. So all of the classrooms started out by telling parents what the goals were for the parent-teacher conference for that night. So sharing the school reading and math goals, reviewing student reading and math goals, in particular where their child is and where we would like them to be by the end of the year, and them understanding what those iReady reports look like and what they tell us. And then sharing activities that they could do with their child at home to help them become even stronger in math and reading. And those things were consistent by grade level, and they also tied back to the grade level SLOs in reading and math. So third grade was working on comprehension in reading, and what they provided for the parents to do at home with the students in third grade related to helping that comprehension piece. So they started out, if you want to scroll down to the next slide, started out with the parents in their classroom. They did a community building activity that they would do with their students. So we do responsive classroom. Teachers do community building every day with their students, and it's designed to create a classroom community, basically students getting to know each other and getting to know their teacher. So they took a sample activity that they did with their students, and they had the parents do it. And in this instance, it was the snowball activity. Then they got into the iReady information. So it was just an overview of why do we give the test, basically. Some general information about why we give this diagnostic in reading and math and who does that, K through 8. Then we shared with them our school reading goal, which I just shared with you. So talking to them about our goal being as a building, getting those students to 65% at grade level by the end of the year, and where we were in the fall. And then the next slide, just giving them a comparison of last year and this year. And we had the same goal last year to get to that 65% by the spring of 2021, and we did not quite get there. So just showing them that it's still what we're striving for to get to that 65% at grade level. We had a great video clip that iReady provides that explains the growth model and how to read those reports. It depicts like a classroom, and it's kind of done in a cartoon format and explains the idea of green being at grade level, yellow 1 year behind, and red 2 or more years behind, and how to read those reports. It's maybe 10 minutes long, but very, very well done. And then we were able to show them a sample report in reading. So then they would look at their own children's reports that they had, and they could look at that sample and then understand how to read their own child's reports. And then the teachers went through what does typical growth mean, what does stretch growth mean, what does the blue bar indicate on that report that they have printed out in the green shaded area. And those things were covered in that video clip as well. And then they finished up with a triangle for their grade. So third grade was at 45% of their kids at grade level in reading at the beginning of the year, but still striving to get to that 65% as a grade at the end of the year. And then grade level texts, each grade shared with the parents, this is what a book looks like for a student at the beginning of the year in third grade, and then what they're expected to be able to read by the end of the year. And so they had those books on hand so the parents could page through those and see the difference, and the teachers would point that out, what that growth looks like for the year with reading. And then this was the last part, which was, here are some things you can do with your child at home. And if there were any worksheets or whatever, we wanted to make sure we provided the parents with that. And then they just repeated that whole process for the math portion, those exact same things. Finished up at the end with questions, and then the parent survey. So the parent survey was very positive. We had, it was like 90%, 85 to 90% that appreciated that format and learned a lot from that format about what that data means. And so then what we did in the spring, we went back to individual conferences for everyone, and we followed up and showed them where our triangles were in reading and math for the building and for the grades. so they could understand the progress that was made, and then they'd get those reports on their own students to show what iReady looked like for their own students in the middle of the year. So I'm going to have Betsy talk about the special nights that we held for families that needed translation. So taking this same format and providing it for our families needing translation, and Betsy was the one that did that, ran point on that, and she did a great job. So.
Hello, Betsy Ramsdale. Buenas tardes. I did. So in October, the elementary conferences were on Tuesday and Thursday evening, and the Spanish conference, large group conference, was on Wednesday in October and in February. And in October, I did, we filled the cafeteria, the commons, and I did the whole thing for them in Spanish. So my icebreaker activity was I gave them all little people and a piece of tape, and then I asked them to tape on the map where they were from. I've been in this district, this is my 14th year. When I started as a middle school ELL teacher, the families were primarily from Mexico, and they were primarily from El Chico, which is in Jalisco, which is near, the biggest city nearby is Guadalajara, with some Puerto Ricans and then some other, but primarily Mexicans. In the last 2 or 3 years, we're getting in a lot of Central Americans, as you can see, and now we have two Venezuelans since that conference. So Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Puerto Rico, Venezuela, and Colombia. There aren't any at Jefferson right now, but the middle school and high school have some Colombians. Someone new came on Friday, and I asked him, so you're all coming from this place, Mura, in Nicaragua. Do you, tell each other this is a nice place? Why are you coming here? And he said yes. So I predict that there will be more. So I did, right? I explained how the school sets its goals and how the school measures their child and how we measure their child's growth, and so what all the reports mean. And iReady has videos in Spanish, and iReady offers parent reports in Spanish, so I prepared all of that for them. In October, I focused on iReady, and then in February, I also explained forward exam testing. And my survey results, too, were very positive. There was only one parent who wished he could have had an individual conference, so I just made sure that he had his own in February. Anything else you wanted me to add?
Should we just talk about the open house, that next piece that we want to try to do?
Right, so the next year's goal is for me to add a Spanish version of the open house as well. There were a lot of things that I wish they would have known to start the year, which I, picked up piece by piece as the year started. But the response was so great. I feel very excited that if I plan something for August, I'll have good turnout. Okay.
Just a quick question, were the majority of the Spanish-speaking people there at the beginning of the school year, or did we have an influx during school?
Honestly, at Jefferson, I was just talking with somebody about this last week. We haven't really had a lot of new students throughout the year. We haven't, it just hasn't happened. It's been pretty consistent this year as far as the enrollment in the students.
For Jefferson,
Yeah, for Jefferson. I can
not
only
for
talk
the
for
district,
Jefferson.
so.
Betsy, the new student that you just had arrived, did they come because they knew some family here already? That's okay.
Family or friends from their village or town.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. The third goal on the school success plan is that connectedness goal. So back to that school perception survey, what we did at Jefferson is similar to what the other elementary schools did. Monthly survey, we did 4th and 5th grade, and they answered those 4 questions, which are down there in the right. I feel I belong at this school, my classmates care about me, I feel comfortable participating in class, and I participate in 1 or more clubs, sports, and activities. So I had Vicki Flatt, our school counselor, oversee this, and the teachers got that Google form for their students at the end of every month with the data being due, so then we could see what that looked like for that month. So this would be March's data, and I can tell you that February's was was stronger. The percentages were higher, so like my classmates care about me, that was 82% in February. So the kids, I mean, we had 62 5th graders take it, so it's interesting to me how that fluctuates by the month, maybe, depending on, they may be thinking about it as like the right here and now instead of, maybe over the course of that year. Sure. But they will be taking the complete school perception survey next week, the 5th graders will. So what we're hoping is that we'll grow in that area from 2.81 last year to 3.17, which is what the state average is, or higher. So, and then we, things that we do for connectedness, we have attendance interventions. Vicki Flatt oversees that. She does a great job. Small groups where she pulls students of the same grade and talks to them about attendance. We've got some friendship groups going on based on the data and a need we see, and we do community building as a school and in the classrooms, responsive classroom, and then those monthly school celebrations. So just some things that we have done to try to improve that. I think for elementaries, the clubs, sports, and activities can always be, the weaker of the 4 because it is hard for students. A lot of them don't have access to that stuff outside the school day, but we do try to point out a lot of things that can count in that area, like they may be involved in church groups, or we provide some things after school, like our Good News Club and some other things, so try to brainstorm examples with them, and sometimes then they're just like, oh, okay, that's what that means. They might tend to gravitate towards like the sports part, and if they don't participate in that, then they think that they're not doing anything outside the school day. So. And then 5th grade leadership group, I just wanted to highlight the playground movement and penny war or coin war that we did for them. And I'm nervous because, Bev, I hope I get this right. Because are you on the board, Bev, for the playground movement? Okay. So I want to explain what the movement is. And then what our coin war, what we raised money for, and how our 5th grade leadership group comes into play there. So the playground movement really it's a national movement, and we have a site in Beaver Dam, which is at the Restore store in Beaver Dam. So it serves that Madison Street area in Beaver Dam, which is, those are our students and our families. And what their goal is to provide a safe place where there are community and supervised activities for families to participate in monthly. And anybody can go to those activities. It doesn't have to just be if you live in that neighborhood. They want to support everybody. And so one thing that they worked on this year is they want to provide 75 boxes of food to families in need. So we did our coin war this year. We do it every year, and we raised over $2,000. Wow. And we designated that money to give to the playground movement in Beaver Dam. And what they'll use that money for is to fill those food boxes for those families. And then we have a 5th grade student, Autumn Vanovich, who is going to be like the student she's kind of that student rep or student communicator. She went into all of the 5th grade classrooms last week and talked to them about participating in Global Youth Service Day, which is May 1st. So what we're encouraging the Jefferson kids to do is come that morning to help put those food boxes together for the families. And then the families will come to the Restore store outside. They'll have like a pickup for the families to come and pick up the boxes. So Autumn put together a nice little speech or presentation for her peers to get them to support that and to come and help out that day. And I would say too that Vicki Flatt, who's our school counselor, she's on the board of directors now. She's serving as their secretary. I think Betsy maybe will be getting involved in that. And they are going to be meeting at Jefferson monthly. So it's been a great thing for our school. So I would encourage maybe some of the other levels, middle school, high school, to get involved in that, but Laura Gorell does a great job. She came in and talked to the kids about the playground movement before we started to raise the money. And then I have to give a big shout out to Associated Bank, because we took our coins there every day. And they counted them. And they were so into it. They want, like, every day they wondered, like, what that looked like with the placement and who was winning. And Misty Snyder is the bank manager, and they helped us last year too, and it was great. Foolishly, we thought when we started this that we could count it by hand. And after the first day last year, we were like, there's no way. So it was pretty amazing. So it's very good for our school. And that is it. Questions?
Does anyone have questions for Mary at all?
Did you find with the format for the open houses that the parents, like, formed a sense of community, getting to know other parents within their kids' classrooms?
Well, I think it helped just for them to be together, you know, in that room with those parents, and then the community building, and just being able to ask questions, and of course, more privacy when that was done, where they could talk to the teacher in private if they wanted to. So, yeah, I mean, I think that they enjoyed it, and that they have a much better understanding of goals and what the iReady, the purpose of it, and how to read those reports. So we're planning on doing it again next year. But it was new, and it caused a little angst, and there was some misinformation out there with parents, but it worked out in the end, and we shared with them the survey results, and I think it went well. So.
The school connectedness survey is for the 4th and 5th graders, or is it the whole?
The school perceptions survey, all the questions is given to students in grades 5 through 11? 11.
Okay.
But we zero in on the 4 questions that deal with connecting to your school, and that is what we use to survey the 4th and 5th graders monthly. That's just kind of how we chose to do it. So, just to check that every month.
I must admit, when I was at the board tour and the coffee chat, I was totally blown away by the amount of people that were there.
Yeah.
And I know that was one thing that we talked about, is how, when we closed South Bearden and merged it with Jefferson, is how that was going to work and how that would look down the road. And obviously, it's working quite well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just amazing the amount of people there.
Yeah. We had breakfast with buddies for the board tour and coffee chat, and it was packed, standing room only. Parents could come and have a donut with their kids, and it was just a huge turnout. Mm-hmm. And we had a Y night in April as well on a Friday night, huge turnout, tons of families there. So families are just ready to get back, you know, and do some of those things, so it's good.
I was impressed with the kids that had, like, parents and grandparents there, and their
Yeah.
biggest concern was, like, can we go on the playground and play before school starts? Like,
I shared with Mark that we had the sweetest call from a grandpa thanking us for having it.
Oh, nice.
And it was really nice, and Lynn, the secretary, took the call, and then he just gave a little bit of feedback, but we just thought that was so awesome that he called us and told us how much he liked it and appreciated it and couldn't believe how many people were there.
nice.
So,
Well, it was really good for us too, because, you know, we had the opportunity to mingle around and talk with different parents and that. And
yeah,
it was really enjoyable.
yeah, the kids love it, so.
Anything else for Mary?
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Yep, thank you, everybody.
Okay, we'll move on to 9.2, Explore America, Washington DC trip request. Mr. Ziebart.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for letting me present this proposal, and I'm really looking forward to this proposal. Some of you may remember the last time I made this proposal a few years ago. It was a while ago. It was 2018 when we took the first trip, the latest trip, and we took 40 students in grades 9 through 11 to Washington, D.C. for a 5-day tour, and I think it was a real success. Parents appreciated it, students seemed to enjoy it. There's an occasional squabble, I suppose, between roommates or siblings or something like that. But it was just a really good trip, and so I'm pleased to be able to present it again. The reason for the trip in the next slide, it sort of started, I guess, with when I started teaching here in the district, have conversations with staff members and students and parents, and there were several comments about, oh, we used to take a trip to Washington, D.C., and that was really a big thing, but it hadn't happened in a long time, I guess. And I started thinking about it a little bit, and the importance of that, making that civic connection and civic engagement, and we had a number of trips, and we still do have a number of trips through the high school for different organizations and courses, the music department, and world languages take trips. And so we started to look into a trip to Washington, and I liked the idea, but I was also sort of struggling with the best way to go about it. What is it that the students and the parents wanted from a trip to Washington? And we looked at a number of different programs and did some surveys and found out that really the majority of students and parents were more interested in a tour experience than some other kind of engagement that I looked into and presented to them. And so because of that, that's what we decided on. We worked through a company called Education First, Explore America. They've been around for 50, 60 years, I think, and do tours for students all over the world. And they have a very good system set up. And I thought about organizing the trip myself and doing all the logistics. I used to work for the YMCA, and that's one of the things that I did years ago. But after talking with Education First, I realized that they were able to offer a number of things that no matter how hard I worked or how much time I had, how much support I had, that I could not provide to parents and students that were looking for a tour. I also talked with other districts to see what they did. A lot of districts have an 8th grade class tour to Washington. That seemed to be a tradition for some districts, and a few other districts also do high school tours as well. So based on the success of the 2018 trip, I put together this proposal. There are a couple of changes to this proposal, the way it is on the slide. I talked with our tour coordinator, because last time it was a 5-day trip, and I checked in to see what the difference would be. And after some discussion, we came up with a 5-day trip for an extra $100.
Wow.
So an extra day for an extra $100. And the price is a little bit different than that. So just 1990 instead of 1890. And what I put into that is what EF Explore America has, which includes flight, ground transportation in Washington, D.C., hotels, good hotels, and admission to sites, a full-time tour director for our tour, nighttime security, another extra that I could not provide, and I also included, as part of the price, at this estimate, some district costs, and that was the thing that I wanted to change from last time. The Explore America price would be $18.10 or $19.10 for that extra day, and one thing that I found the last time is that there were some local costs that we had to put together, and one of them was transportation to the airport. And originally I thought in my head, well, the parents would want to, take their kids to the airport, see them off. But then, I realized that the parents were just fine putting them on a bus and sending them to the airport. So what we did is we just basically, asked the students for an extra $20 or whatever to provide the bus to the airport and back to the high school, and that worked out great. I mean, everybody wanted to do that. So I kind of thought, well, we'd build that in, and there were some other costs. One of the things is I want to maintain a 10-to-1 student to chaperone ratio. And EF will cover the cost or built in the cost for every 10 students. But then there's that gap between the 11th student and the 19th student, and they prorate the cost, but it's still an expense on us if we wanted to maintain that 10-to-1 ratio. So I considered that as well. And having some cushion, I guess, for activities. One of the things that I think is important for this trip is to get the travelers together throughout the school year ahead of time, so they get to know each other and work with each other, and then after the experience, after the trip, get together for a kind of a little reunion before the next school year. So those are some small expenses that I wanted to budget in that would go really back to the students and the families themselves. Now, the only thing that they wouldn't, and this price, it's a little bit different. Last time, we didn't have a lunchtime meal provided. We did breakfast and dinner instead of lunch, because you got such a range of students and what they eat for lunch, and so instead of just building that into the cost, we just decided the students themselves could figure out what they were going to do for lunch, and we would kind of build into the tour itself opportunities for them to eat. But this price actually includes lunchtime meals, and it would be less expensive if we decided to once again take those lunchtime meals out. And so as far as eligibility, we were thinking grades 9 to 11 for next year. So that would be the 8th graders, or currently 8th graders, through the current 10th graders. So, and it would be open to anybody. I think that was the other piece that I liked about this idea of this tour, is that it's really open. You wouldn't have to take a particular class or be in a particular organization. It's really going to be open to the entire student body, as long as they meet behavior review expectations and have recommendations and attend trip meetings. So. And that's it. I think I have all of the information out to you. Did you have any questions or comments?
You said last time you took about 40 kids. Was that the number that were interested, or do you cap it at a certain number?
We didn't cap it. I think what we decided was we would actually do the trip if we could get at least 20
Okay.
originally. And so I was hoping for 20. And I was excited to get 40. And that was actually a benefit, because if we had less than 35 students, they put us with another group, it's another smaller group. And that's limiting to some extent, because you're sort of bundled together and you don't have the flexibility. My goal, and I think what I'd like you to approve, is a minimum of 35, because that way we would have our own tour guide and we could really design the tour and have that flexibility to do some special things just with us. We wouldn't have to try to work that out.
When you're planning for the trip, are there fundraising opportunities for the kids, or?
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do the proposal and begin that process this spring, so that students would have time to raise funds and we could organize fundraising. Last time, I guess the main fundraiser was to work at the Packers games in the food service. And we did a number of Packers games. And students had a lot of fun, and some parents joined in and did that as well. So yes, we'll have fundraising and plenty of time, I think, between now and then for students who are really interested to go, and families who would really want their children to go, to be able to raise that money. And EF actually has a really good system where they take care of the financing. Instead of me sort of collecting money and tucking it in my pockets and then taking it down to the office every night, they have it all set up on their website. So as soon as we have a student enrolled on their website, then the financing goes through them. And they have a neat gift site as well. So if grandparents or other relatives or friends want to give a gift toward their trip, they can do that directly online, and
Nice.
it's super simple. And kids can then say, Grandma, Grandpa, instead of a regular Christmas gift, I'd like you to donate to my trip, and they can do that online really simply.
Nice. What are a couple of the things you might see on your trip this year?
Oh, yeah. The trip last year, or last time, was really great. And some of the things that are sort of on the list, I think that I'm most interested in having the students see the Mount Vernon trip. And it's a great site. It's a great historical site. And the Capitol tour, they do a night tour of the monuments, so you get to see them at night around the tidal basin, and I like that one. Last time we had tickets to the Holocaust Museum, because you have to get those ahead of time. We got those, and the students really talked about how much they were moved by that part of the trip. And then we also had the students go to the Newseum, which is, there's a fee to that one, but it's really a good museum. And then there's some other options that we could include, especially if we have our own tour, including the International Spy Museum. I think that might be a good one to go to. But, the kinds of experiences that I think most people want to have that first time around. Like, the laying of the wreath at Arlington National Cemetery and having that experience. Those are the big things. Plus, just some more of casual things like going to Georgetown and spending some time just in neighborhoods like that. And of course the Smithsonian, and students would have a choice of going to whatever Smithsonian museum that would interest them. And so we have time set aside for that.
Speaking of the Smithsonian, I was looking at this because we were just in DC at the end of March, and we were at two of the Smithsonian buildings, and that was the last day. They were closing the Smithsonian over the summer and into the fall. They're remodeling stuff. So when you guys go in June of 2023, it should be really picked up and good. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's a neat place anyways, but it was like lots of people were there, and then at the end, when they were closing, they go, okay, final time to take a picture before we remodel.
Right.
So it was like.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was nice, I know that just this spring, the museums and the National Zoo opened up to their regular schedule. They had limited hours
Right,
because
right.
of the pandemic up until just this spring. And so things are really opening up there as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Zebarth?
Well, I do have one question. If you want to make sure a minimum of 35 students, do you have to have, is there a time limit? I mean, you know, before you can make these arrangements for this time?
As far as Explore America is concerned, we can still make arrangements with fewer travelers
Okay.
and just sort of at the beginning of the process plan if we have, I mean, if we get, let's say we get 25 to 30 this fall, so we don't quite get to that 35 this spring. But over the summer or maybe next fall, another campaign, and we have students, we can make those changes. And Explore America is really flexible, and it's just, the question would be, would we have enough
Yeah.
to have
To
our
warrant
own
the trip.
independent tour? And that's, I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the trip for June of 2023 for upcoming freshmen through juniors to travel to Washington DC.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the Explore America trip. Mary, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Marge Jorgensen,
Yes.
John Cross,
Yes.
Mary Coombs,
Yes.
Maria Mason,
Yes.
Lisa Panzer,
Yes.
Gary Spielman,
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski,
Yes.
Deb Dillard.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you.
Okay, we'll move on to 9.3, Return to Learn update. Mr. DiStefano.
Good evening. Just a brief update. Going through a few of our community metrics, specific realities associated with our district, provide some other updates, and then an opportunity for questions, comments, or discussion. So if we go ahead and look at our district boundary reports, total confirmed cases of COVID-19 over the last 7 days in the district boundary. Again, that's not the district itself, that's the boundary, is 20. So that puts us at a 2.86 positive 7-day average. You see that that's significantly lower than February, a little bit higher than March. But as you'll see here, our numbers in our district have been very low, which is great news. Hospitalization, no significant change in the South Central region. If you go to the Department of Health website and look at the trajectory statewide, it actually still is decreasing kind of overall. But if we look at our specific region, there hasn't been a significant change over their last reporting period, which I guess the caveat would be, I think the last reported date was the 6th of April, and I double-checked that this afternoon. Patients in ICU, that's very positive news. That's decreasing all across the state, which is great. Confirmed and probable cases since March of 2020, so over 2 years ago now, we see that the cases have decreased significantly, and they have held at a much lower rate, so that's great news. Our COVID activity, again, you kind of have these month summaries from September through February, and then I left the week by weeks for March and April. You notice that there is a week in March where we did not report. That was spring break week, but you see that we are less than 0.1% since March 7th. Just a couple little updates. Haven't had the opportunity to speak with some of our nurses. I think they have definitely noticed and felt over the last month and a half, 2 months, kind of a more normalized, probably improved work environment for them. They've had the ability to focus more on some of the day-to-day healthcare and maybe some of those things that they've been really, really passionate about with their particular positions. Cases remain low throughout the state. There is some generalized increases in certain areas, but again, even the increases are still registering very low to some of those other peak times that we had seen over the last couple of years. So I think we're going to see and hear some little ebbs and flows, but optimistically that's still going to be within a very low range or rate. The overall engagement and concern and focus from Dodge County Health and other entities that we work with has decreased substantially. So a lot less conversation. We're getting a lot less updates on things. We're not having the type of engagement from our local health department. Some of that might have to do with staffing challenges. But even when that was staffed, and I don't really know what's going on there, today or at that moment, those updates and the concerns were very, very brief. I'd say those engagements with our Dodge County superintendents were less than 5 minutes. Although the superintendents still met and talked about other logistics and realities, though. And then just generally speaking, I'm sure that the board and community feels and sees this, but sentiments throughout our educational systems have embraced kind of a mindset of living with this. And you see a lot of districts, even districts that maybe were slower to make some adjustments, have made more of those adjustments and quote unquote living with COVID. Questions, comments?
Mark, I'm curious how many students we still have that are doing online learning or have not come back to the building or have expressed concern about coming back to the building in the fall.
That's a great question. I don't have that number, so I will be sure to report out on that next month. I can include that in the update.
Okay, thank
I
you.
don't know if anybody else knows anything off the top of their head, but I don't want to put them on the spot. But that's a great question. I think that'd be good to report out on in May. Thank you for asking.
Anything else for Mark?
Just considering the report and the way it's been, I know we talked a couple months ago about discontinuing these reports, but wanted to continue through spring break, which we did do. I'm going to make a motion that we discontinue the Return to Learn plan on our monthly agenda unless there is a significant change that we would need an update.
Do we have a second? No second?
Okay, I just haven't heard anything
Nope.
much coming out of the county, and I know it takes you time always to prepare these, so.
That's fine. So the next month, what I'll plan on is very similar report, and then I'll include that percentage. It might be a little bit challenging to completely ascertain whether they're not coming back or there's hesitancy specifically health-related versus whether or not we're still going to have those opportunities. So, but we can definitely put together the exact percentages and maybe a general sentiment and some feedback from those people that are still online.
Yeah, just trying to get a general sentiment from those individuals that are still not physically with us in the
Yep.
building.
Yep.
And potential reasons, et cetera, so that perhaps, if the health climate continues to remain positive, that they would rejoin us again in the fall.
Mhm. Yeah, and then, moving forward, probably early summer, I would say at the latest, we're going to have a good solid idea of what our intentions are regarding what the flexibility of offerings might be, what those formats or venues could be, and what we're going to
Correct.
continue to support financially. Certainly, we do have, some funds that are intended to offset some of that demand if it's there, but that would be good grounding context. And then I would anticipate in the summer, if there's updates, it's going to be specific to programming, but I'm obviously not necessarily reporting on numbers. But we'll see throughout the summer. So, but next month we'll do the same thing, and we'll add in the information on the online students, those other pieces.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And then just for the record, so it's in the minutes that motion died on the floor due to lack of second. Thank you, Mark. Okay, we'll move on to item 10, reports to be presented by the Board of Education. Since Sadie wasn't able to be here tonight, we won't have a student representative report, so we'll move on to operations.
Operations did not meet in March. Our next meeting will be April 25th.
Thank you, Marge. 10.3, teaching and learning.
Teaching and Learning also did not meet in March, and our next meeting is next Monday, the 18th, at 5:30.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to 10 point.
It'll be immediately
Following.
following.
Immediately
Following the
following
special
our, yeah, okay.
And that's at 5:30, right?
Yes.
Correct. So ETA probably closer to 6, but.
Okay, we'll move on to 10.4, board engagement. Has anyone got anything they'd like to share?
I guess since the last meeting, the one thing that I made sure I went to was the fine art night at the middle school. It was well done. There were, the families participated. You had singing, you had artwork. Kids were cutting out fingers and not their own fingers. But anyways, and the music was great. The bands and the singing and everything like that. And so, thank you, Bill, and middle school. It was a great collaboration, and I hope something like that continues.
We went to the middle school play, which was good.
The same night the middle school had their art night, Washington School had a family night, paint night, and it was amazing. Like, the organized chaos was absolutely unreal. It was extremely organized, but there were so many people there, all over the place. And it was just great to see whole families painting together, and then they had pizza, and it was just awesome. Lots of staff volunteer time and work went into that night, so it was really good. And then some of us went to Jefferson for a tour, so that was pretty awesome. We got to see a lot of different things and had a chance to talk to some of the staff, a lot of the families, and to learn a little more about the things. And we did learn that the ducks are back in the courtyard. So we'll look forward to seeing something on the walk through the school to get the ducklings out. But no, it was a great tour. We did not get to visit all classrooms because forward testing was going on, so they had a testing environment in half the school. But we did get to see the other half, and thanks to all the staff that let us wander into their classrooms and talk to their students.
Yeah, I guess I was at the Jefferson tour, so I don't need to elaborate any more than that because Joanne did a great job explaining that. So,
And Mary and Gary.
We didn't see any board members participating in the FIAD, doing planks or sit-ups, though, or
No.
anything.
We watched.
okay, if no one else from the board has anything, I'll hand it over to Mr. DeStefano.
Yeah, so it's from a recognition standpoint, the board mentioned a lot of great things. Obviously, our staff and our students are working really hard on a variety of areas. Right now, it's testing season, which is a really important time for us. Gives us a good measure of where we're at and helps us set goals for the future as well. So that takes a lot of extra time and energy for our students, for our staff, and oftentimes also for our families. Hopefully they're encouraging, and I know that many of them are, their students to put their best foot forward when they're participating in that. So really want to say thank you for all the work that's been going on with that. Also, I know that this time of year, we've got a number of student groups throughout the year, but this time of year, we've got a number of student groups that engage in different volunteer activities. I know that the middle school had some students out last week participating in some community cleanup that the kids could kind of sign up and engage in. So that's really great news. I want to continue to encourage our students and our schools to provide students those opportunities to give back. Want to give a shout out to our grounds crew for the spring they've been navigating. It looks like we got enough cooperation to be functional. I know that we had some games going on today and maybe even tomorrow, so I know that's really important for our students, obviously, also for their families, and it's nice to see those other family members starting to come to more things too when they have that opportunity. So it's a lot of work ahead of them, and there's a lot more events coming up that they're going to have to prepare for, inside and outside, so want to thank them. And then last but not least, not too long ago, we had the UW Badgers volleyball program hosted an event, or had an event here that we were able to host. And they did this at 2 high schools in the state of Wisconsin, in Beaverdam and Mugwanago. I don't know if the Mugwanago date actually happened yet, but it's on their calendar. It did happen this past week. So just a nice event for the community. I talked to a couple of people who had never been in the field house for anything, but knowing that the national championship Badgers were here, they weren't necessarily huge sports fans by any means, but like super cool thing to go to. So, to have thousands of people in our house and engaging in our community in a positive way is awesome. So hats off to Mel, Austin, the staff that helped out with that at the high school, and the students. There were some students that volunteered some of their time to support that event. So good stuff, a lot of good stuff going on.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item 11.
I move we recess into closed session per Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically to discuss specific employees and employee groups, and to discuss negotiation strategy, and Wisconsin Statute 19.85, Parent 1, Parent E, for deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. We will reconvene into open session for the possible transaction of business and adjournment.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second to go into closed session. Mary, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Jack Kraus?
Yes.
Mary Coombs?
Yes.
Maria Mason?
Yes.
Lisa Fiancher?
Yes.
Gary Spielman?
Yes.
Brian Majeski?
Yes.
Doug Dillard?
Yes.
Mark Sisson?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're all set? Okay, we'll move on to item 13, district policy and guidelines, resignations and retirements.
There are 5 resignations on the agenda for your approval this evening.
I move actually, Nicole, is B a retirement?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you for catching that. I'm sorry, there's 4 resignations and 1 retirement. The retirement is Bev Gust. She has been a TA at the high school for over 20 years.
Excellent. I move the board approve the retirement and resignations as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resignations and retirements as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Leave of absence.
There are 5 leaves of absence on your agenda this evening.
I move the board approve the leaves of absence as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve all the leaves of absence as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I'll abstain.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. 13.3 appointments.
Okay, we have 5 appointments. 2 of them are long-term subs. One is Luann Manti, literacy support teacher at Jefferson. She has been filling in there and will continue to do so for the remainder of the year. Melissa Paminter will be an intermittent leave or an intermittent long-term sub for our Alt Ed program here at the high school. We have Carla Dane, who has been offered a position as school counselor for our elementary schools. Madeline Flanders, FIA teacher for our elementary schools. Annie Frankovis, math teacher at the high school. Sam Panetti, literacy support teacher at Jefferson. And Carrie Reel, elementary social worker.
I move the board approve the appointments as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the appointments as presented. Mary, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Mary Coon,
Yes.
Maria Mason,
Yes.
Lisa Panzer,
Yes.
Gary Spielman.
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski.
Yes.
Beth Violate,
Yes.
Marcia Jorgensen,
Yes.
John Kraus.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to other business, payment of claims.
Whoop,
Oh,
13.4.
13.4.
I don't have a
Renewal of
13.4 on
teacher
mine.
contract.
Oops.
13.4 is renewal of teacher contracts 2022-2023.
Sorry.
Renewal of teacher contracts is a statutory requirement that we do annually. At this time, I am asking for your approval, granting the administration the authority to issue teacher contracts to current certified staff for the 22-23 school year. With your approval, we will then issue teacher contracts by May 15th with a return date of June 15th.
So moved.
So,
Yeah, have
We
to
need a
have
motion, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, second.
So we have a motion and a second for the renewal of the teacher contracts for the 2022-2023. Mary, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Maria Mason,
Yes.
Lisa Panzer,
Yes.
Gary Spielman,
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski,
Yes.
Beth Violate,
Yes.
Marcia Jorgensen,
Yes.
John Kraus.
Yes.
Mary Coon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we can go on to other business. 14.1, payment of claims.
I make a motion for payment of claims in the amount of $4,750,744.18.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the payment of claims. Mary, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Lisa Panzer,
Yes.
Gary Spielman,
Yes.
Joanne Tajewski,
Yes.
Beth Violate,
Yes.
Marcia Jorgensen,
Yes.
John Kraus,
Yes.
Mary Coon,
Yes.
Maria Mason.
Yes.
Okay, if there's anything, it's not anything else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.